Welcome, everyone. I'm Sean and Maresh from Giant Leap, and today we have the pleasure of speaking to Blackout from Shattered Eon. And what I might do is I'll kick off with some brief introductions, maybe a bit of background information, because I'm always curious to hear about the various builders working in Web3 at the moment. And then we can talk a bit about the Shattered Eon game itself and also what sort of brought you into Web3 and where the opportunities are. So Blackout, thanks for joining us today.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. Excited to be here. It's been a while. We were talking back and forth, and I'm glad we finally were able to link up.
Yeah, absolutely. That's how it goes when you start talking to someone in December. It's always gets really busy, and then there's like a little break at the end of the year. But I'm glad we were able to sync up again.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the whole holiday thing is always rough, and we're constantly busy. So again, glad to have you, or glad to be here.
Absolutely.
You're not on my thing.
We'll cross share. It's
Yeah,
fine. Yeah,
yeah.
we're on each
I
other's
feel like
shows
part
at
of
the
the team
moment.
already, man. It's like we're sitting shoulder to shoulder.
Awesome. So I'd love to find out a bit more about your background and how you became, let's say, interested in not just Web3 gaming, but I guess crypto and Web3 in general. What sort of led you into the space? How did you get involved initially?
Well, I have a heavy background in sales. Like I used to sell cars, I worked on them. I was a mechanic for a good amount of years. And then, one day, just being a curious person, I used to do web design and some web marketing business stuff on the side. I stumbled upon Bitcoin and, BTC Talk or whatever that old website is. Stumbled upon it and just kind of got into the thick of it and learned how to mine my first coin, which I believe was ETH around $8, and
Nice.
it was kind of game over from there. But I've managed to, stick around trading, doing all the normal stuff that people get involved with initially for about the last 5 to 6 years, and that just kind of eventually evolved into meeting my team that I have now, and they come from all different walks of life, and we started building a game because we love games.
Fantastic. And I had an inkling actually that you'd been in this space for a little while. You can always tell who's come through a few winters because I don't think cynicism is the right term to use, but you can always tell on Twitter who's kind of
Battle
like,
hardened.
exactly, who's like a
Yeah.
first time moon boy versus someone who's like, who can actually call out a lot of the crap, because there is a lot of crap that's happening in our industry, and we love our industry, which, it's changing the world and everything, but there is so much noise. And I've always enjoyed your tweets. You seem to sort of say what's on your mind and call out a lot of the bullshit that's going on. So I
Oh
find that
yeah.
very, very, very interesting. And you
It's
mentioned
kind of.
cars. Sorry, did you want to say something?
I was gonna say that's just kind of my shtick. So it annoys me the amount of crap that's out there, but that's a story for another day, I'm sure.
Yeah, we could have I think a whole other
Oh yeah, we'll just keep it
podcast
running
about that.
24
Exactly.
hours and
And do you still do anything with cars these days? Do you
I
still
mean, I
play with them a
always
bit?
I always will. Like, I mean, I grew up building motorcycles with my pops and working on small engines, and that gravitated or
Fantastic.
translated into motorcycles. And then my first car, I wanted to make it go faster and sound louder and all that stuff. So it's in my blood at this point. But
Yeah.
currently, no, I'm full time, in the business and doing this now, and it just a lot of that initial like learning how to take things apart and put them back together, how they work. You put fuel in, air goes in, it creates a combustion. I'm able to architect a lot of systems that way, just understanding how the nuance of everything works, and that's been like my main um, what do you call that, contribution to the team, and I manage everything, social media and stuff like that.
Yeah. Fantastic. But I never really saw things that way. But I guess it makes some sense because I enjoy playing with cars as well. I've been restoring an old British car, which is basically a nightmare from all aspects. In particular the electrics, and it actually set on fire the last time I tried to drive it. So,
Oh no.
but yeah,
Is it an old gem or something?
it's an old Lotus from the
A
late
Lotus.
80s. Yeah, so
Nice.
it's a nice car. It's beautiful to look at when it's parked, but
Yep,
driving it
yep.
is a different beast. Um, no, that's fantastic. It's good to get a bit of a feel of sort of where you've come from. And the other thing I wanted to ask is, have you been a gamer for a long time? What sort of Web 2 games, I guess we should call them Web 2 games now to sort of separate them out, even though they're the norm. But what kind of Web 2 games have you been playing, and which ones in particular have really sort of, I guess, shaped you as a gamer?
Well, to start things off, I got my first computer when I was like 5. So that's back when they had like floppy disks. The first game I ever played was a thing called like Super Street or something like that, and it was just like a drag racing simulator that you could upgrade your parts, and it was so boring and like basic, but it intrigued me. I was like, okay, I got to understand how these computer things work, you know?
Mm,
Um, but no, from there, big Super Nintendo age, like I played all the Pokemon and Zeldas. Those are like my two favorite core games, and then that eventually evolved into Castlevania, Symphony of the Night, all the Castlevania
nice.
franchises, Super Metroid, and then I think what really got me into like the whole landscape of um, social games and stuff like that is StarCraft 2 and Diablo.
Right. Diablo, love it.
And yeah, uh, the amount of hours I spent playing that damn game is ridiculous, and I grinded up to I don't remember what the ranks at the time, but it was like the one after platinum. I think it was master or something like that, whatever. But I just
Mm.
could not keep up with those guys. They're too fast, had way better skills than I did, and I was like, well, I'm never gonna make a career out of this. So kind of put that in my back pocket for a bit, and then played all the Call of Duties, Modern Warfare, stuff like that. Whatever's popular and you can play with friends, I kind of enjoy those components the most.
Mm.
And Skyrim, all those cool ones. Like I like open world. It really, it just really depends on my mood. I'll play just about anything except golf with your friends because I hate that game. What about you
No.
guys? What's your background and all that stuff? I know very little about what's going on over there at Giant Leap.
Yeah, no, I'll give you a bit of a background as well. So we have been working together for a few years. We did a lot of things in DeFi for the first few years of our crypto journey.
Okay.
So built a lot of AMMs, money markets, and various DeFi protocols, and we sort of saw the rise and fall of everything in that space. And we sort of took our learnings and wanted to reset a bit towards the middle of last year in terms of trying to build something of actual value instead of just something where we have only number go up people, because that gets really draining and taxing, and it's a lot of the things are out of your control when you're building in such a sort of fast moving industry. So
Oh yeah, definitely.
around the same time, we came across what the guys from Mud were doing, from the Lattice team,
Hmm.
which looked really interesting about putting the rule set on the blockchain, which I think opened up a lot of ideas for us in terms of, okay, now maybe on-chain games are feasible, and then what that could mean for on-chain games. And that's when we started to really sort of delve into um, creating some kind of autonomous world, as I like to call it, in the sort of mud community. And Giant Leap was kind of like, okay, if we wanted to build a game, or if we wanted to spend time in a universe, what would that look like? And Maresh and I are huge Expanse fans. We've been into sci-fi for ages. The Mass Effect series, one of my favorite series ever, in terms of gaming and stuff. So we wanted to definitely do something in space, because I think, a lot of people in crypto just are drawn to space and sci-fi in general. And
I'm a fan myself.
right, it's so
We
good.
picked the genre for a reason. There's a clear gap in the offerings there.
And yeah, and I think I mean, Giant Leap, and I think the beauty of Giant Leap is it's kind of always changing. We can kind of throw different ideas at it. But one of the first things that we are building is, did have you ever played Dark Forest, which is the
No, but I saw kind of what you guys were doing, and it reminded me of that instantly.
yeah,
I
so
do know about it. I know it. I've scanned through the docs and watched people play it, and it's very, very awesome. Like what they're doing with the ZK proofs and stuff over there.
yeah,
It's a
absolutely.
shame they're not doing more with it and they're moving on to other things because I think that could be like something really amazing. But continue. I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
Yeah, no, no, that's exactly right. I mean, initially we wanted to build on Dark Forest because we loved playing it so much. We wanted to extend it, but because I guess it was one of the first, OGs of on-chain gaming, it wasn't really built in a way that was easily extendable. And I think that's one of the main value props of why you would build an on-chain game. It's so that, it's, I guess some people use uh, interoperability,
Composable,
composable in a
interoperable.
sort
Yeah.
of similar way. I think there's some nuance there, but I think I'll let Maresh sort of talk about that in a bit later. But I think extendability of a game, where your community can come in and say, hey, I'd love to see this in the game, and they don't need to ask you permission to do it. They can actually build it themselves if they have the skills, or actually just talk in the community, and you guys can quickly implement something. I think that's a really powerful component
Yeah.
of Web3 gaming.
User publishing, like user generated content and stuff like that, I think is where like the market is naturally gravitating towards, because
Mm,
it creates that connectedness of like, oh, I don't have all the resources to make all of this, but I want to make this piece of it. And then it gives them a chance to get involved and maybe do something they wouldn't have normally been able to do because you guys gave them the tools to do so.
absolutely, absolutely. So with the first game we're building for Giant Leap, called the Underverse, it's so we're trying to work within the constraints of blockchain gaming whilst having a minimum fun game loop. That's kind of the only objective that we set ourselves. And one of the things that made sense to us was, how do we sort of take what Dark Forest has, and add some features in there where we could implement some of the game loops that we have from some of the favorite board games that we've been playing, and then have that in a space that we can make it multiplayer with 6 people initially, and then eventually scale it up to more people. So that's
Mhm.
kind of what we've been working on at this stage. But Maresh, did you want to add anything to that about Underverse?
Yeah. So, as Sean mentioned, I think the most important thing, which the reason why we even gravitated towards it was uh, DeFi and crypto in general right now is basically a tool set without an application. So, I mean, Bitcoin, yeah, I mean, it's an awesome piece of technology, but some years back, you could actually use it to buy and sell stuff. There used to be these pay with Bitcoin stickers everywhere, or at least in
Mhm.
some places. And we don't have that anymore. In fact, if it has all been going further and further away from the original use case. Ethereum, I mean, we all love Ethereum, but its primary use case is really building DeFi dApps, whose primary use case is really building Ponzi schemes, which basically use liquidity mining as a way to puff up things, and uh, we're basically all circle jerking ourselves. So there's the whole thing uh, around what can we actually use this for, what problems it solves, what utility it creates has been missing. And for a while, I come from a fintech background. I've done TradFi stuff, I've done securities offerings, etc. Generally came to the conclusion that real world integrations are not going to be a thing. There are several reasons which ranging from legal to technical, etc., etc. But I think that's not going to be feasible. So the only real pathway is to create autonomous worlds which are fully on chain, in which these things can work. And beyond that, we have run DeFi dApps and we have had our fair share of exploits as well. So we generally came to the conclusion that uh, the technology is not mature enough right now to support hundreds of billions of dollars in AUM. So that Gupsheep fellow from Zero X Park, Dark Forest, he has the right ideas that you need to further the state of technology in a low stakes manner. What that means is if something goes wrong, you don't want to lose hundreds of millions. Uh,
Mhm.
what games do, in a sense, is they are very complicated in terms of the technology which is used. For example, even with what we are doing, the kind of tech which we are building has significant complexity in the mathematical equations which are there. But if something goes wrong, the worst that will happen is the game will not work exactly as intended, and we can reset it. Nobody's going to lose a ton of money doing that. So I think, and plus, games do provide a utility in terms of its fun value. I mean, like people play games, they have fun. So there is at least that utility. So that's like our overall rationale in doing this. And but the biggest thing is how can we build, as Sean mentioned, how can we build a minimum viable fun loop within the constraints of the tech so far. Yeah, that we
Nice.
have right now.
Well, you guys
Uh,
have definitely put a lot of time into thinking about this. I can already tell you that.
that's all we do. We just sit and talk and think. We don't actually
Yeah.
we don't actually try to build businesses here. That's for other people to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess this a good sort of segue into what you've been doing with Shattered Eon. Tell us about how that started and what was the sort of drive behind creating that project.
So, similar background. Like we had gone through our thick of it with the DeFi protocols, doing, getting involved in other people's projects and seeing how they run them. I personally can't ever love something enough unless I'm the one steering the ship, so to say. So, my attention wanes and I eventually get tired of it and I can't deal with other people running something horribly. So, um, got the team together. They each had a different skill set. We got two great artists. We got a great dev. Our lore world builder guy. He does sticker packs and stuff. Everybody just was kind of having fun. And then we all linked up and had this grand idea, but it only stemmed from Wolf Game because they had done something pretty new at the time with the gamify or the GameFi type sector, and it was just interesting. And I'm like, okay, hey guys, what if we did something like this and we did it this way? And it was originally Space Marines that were trying to harvest space meat on a weird moon or something, and we were going to have space hot dogs. It was something stupid, really stupid, and we were going to call it Galaxy Game. That after a month of developing and actually putting it down on paper, that changed very rapidly. And then we started having our ideas, and these are really smart people that we work with. There's a lot of smart people in this industry. It's crazy. You would never know it unless you like get past the conversational Twitter bants and things like that. So we started plugging away at it, and Dev went to work on the contracts. We went through all of our tokenomics, started the art, and we eventually launched it after 6 months of really, what's our future after the launch. And that's what I think is gonna um, propel us forward, is because we have about 2 to 3 years of content already plotted out, and everything interlaces in such a way that it's all about the game. Like the tokens and everything else are a nice additional bonus, but the game is really the important part to us because we want to make something that we want to play too, right? And we also want other people to enjoy it, and not everybody is going to enjoy the same things we do, so we're trying to create something that everybody from all walks of life can, no matter what gaming experience they have, they can enjoy it in some aspect. And because it is Web3, they're going to be a little more interested in it, and we're going for something that hasn't really been done before in a way that we think, because of the way we're building the contracts and the logic engine and stuff on Solidity. But yeah, it just it started as an idea like everything does, and it's taken on a life of its own, and we're going for all the marbles right now.
Fantastic. And I mean, we all know about the, I guess, the constraints of of let's say true Web3 gaming at the moment. What sort of made you guys sort of want to go down that path? What made being a truly on-chain game worth it for you guys, considering all the things you would have had to potentially sacrifice if you were to just put something on Unity and then launch it as a Web2 and have NFT integrations?
Yeah. So obviously true ownership first and foremost. No game that's out there in Web 2, you're never going to truly own your assets. And the way we went with it is, you guys are probably familiar with Eve and stuff like that. I know everybody references it a lot because they like the idea, RuneScape, things like that, where they have open markets to basically players dictate the ebb and flow of the economy and things like that. And that's what we wanted to shoot for. We want to put all of these things that you can do in somebody's hand and let them just go at each other's throats and see what happens. And every part of like our items, emissions, the tokens, everything like that, the way the upgrades work, it's all geared at a PvP, PvE type situation. And I think I'm trailing off from your original question, but um, it's just we're trying to create a group environment similar to ETH Dark Forest and stuff like that. So that way you can hop in, enjoy the world. You truly get to own everything that happens, and you dictate what happens as far as all of the items and you know, who gets attacked, how many times you defend against somebody. It's everybody against everybody.
Right. And can you describe the game for someone who, let's say, hasn't been on your Twitter yet, and like, what's the closest analogy to Web 2 game? Like, is it an RTS like StarCraft, or is it some kind of hybrid? You know, could you sort of give a bit of an explanation?
Well, it's a sci-fi themed strategy base building resource management game. So that's like the buzzwords, right? And then the closest parallel is probably Clash of Clans mixed with a little Game of War and Age of Empires.
Fantastic. Very cool. And I know you have the, I guess, the ops unit as the
Hmm.
centerpiece of the game. Can you talk a little bit about how that works, and especially in the Web3 context?
Uh, yeah, I was actually gonna send you an image of it so we could pop it up, but it's not letting me. But anyways, um, so the ARPS unit is your central base. That's gonna land down from the Imperial Guild. They're giving you these bases to use so that way you can stay protected while you're working on the harsh environment of the planet. And what's going to happen is your colonists are basically going to develop from there. They start with that unit, it houses them, it has all the necessary things they need to get started, and it will mine a little bit of Rheon per day, but it also primarily starts mining one of the first resources, which is Teknite. It's like our metal ore. And from there, you just start expanding your base out. You have 7 modules that surround your base eventually. You can level those up as you choose. You can also kind of mess up in the process and not get your resources right, and maybe your energy drains lower or higher than your actual output and things. There's a lot of little interlaced mechanics that way, but it's it's a base and it operates like a slotted NFT. You get to stake your colonists in it. They're equipable. All the modules attached to it, all that data goes into the NFT and gets dynamically presented in the images and in the metadata um, as soon as it updates from actions.
Very cool. So I guess the asset that a player owns is the ops unit, is it? And that's the thing that they stake in the game and derive benefit from, or are they actually staking the characters that will reside in the base?
It's the ARPS itself. That's the main
Cool.
um, game piece that gives you access to the game, and then from there you can put colonists in it, and it takes care of all your resources for you. It stores all those in the contract, and we're not doing any other like crazy tokens for resources or anything. We're keeping it all as like counters within the contract, so that way it
Mm,
doesn't get too crazy. We don't want a lot of other tokens floating around because it's already confusing for most of our new players.
mm,
Uh,
mm.
but again, we're hoping that the UI, the way we create it, and the tutorials, and just the flow of everything will make it a lot easier to understand.
Yeah, fantastic. We had a conversation with Bodan Paresh, was it, or Godan from Myth
Bodan from
Mithraeum?
Mithraeum. Yeah,
Yeah, are
yeah,
you
yeah.
familiar with that, with Mithraeum Blackout?
I have never heard of it.
Right. Okay. So they're also doing an on-chain game. It's more of a like
Did you say Mytherium
a
with an M?
Mithraeum.
Mithraeum, like Mithril
Mithraeum.
from, yeah,
Mytherium.
Mithraeum.
Sounds elvish. Some lot. Yeah.
Mytherium. Gotcha. Yeah, I see it right now. I have it on Twitter.
Yeah. So they've been doing some cool stuff, and they've got like a world map that looks like Civilization a little bit, and they've got
Hmm.
settlements, and he gave us a really nice tech demo, and one of the things that came to mind was, how do you make a game that is on chain but not sort of skirt into DeFi DApp territory with a nicer UI, if you know what I mean? Like, how do you still make it play like a game instead
Uh-huh.
of just sort of clicking things on a screen, and you might have a very nice looking UI, very nice looking graphics, but at the end of the day, it's still, um, you're not really doing anything interactive in terms of the game pieces. So is that something that you guys sort of struggle with at all, or sort of
I
consider?
think we got that pretty locked in spades, man. Okay, so yeah, you have your base, all right? It's all visualized. Of course, Unity's taking care of like the hard lifting when it comes to that. But your little guy that walks around that can go around, manage your base, all the buttons you click, your bases, everything like that is interactive. And then when you get to the world map, you actually have to decide what troops to send. You have to go out and search your enemy that you want to attack, and it visualizes that pathfinding is taken care of. It goes and shows you how it's going to resolve. It has a after action report. Like there's so many actual components that are normal with games in general that are happening within our Unity package. So, well, I can't really say everything because it's just easier to show people. I can't really explain it, but
Yeah.
we I definitely did not want to do anything like DeFi Kingdoms or um,
Hmm.
what's the other one? Have you ever played DFK or seen it?
I've seen DFK, yeah, yeah, and I think quite a few games sort of fall into that trap as well, particularly if they try to go full Web3, because I think a lot of people realize very quickly that there are just, it's difficult to sort of implement a game with that sort of engine. You mentioned you're using Unity as well. It's how do you get Unity to work with your, um, I guess, Web3 backend? Is that something you guys have to spend quite a bit of time developing?
Yeah, Morales definitely helps. It's a backend for all the chain data indexing and stuff like that, the database. And then what we do is we convert all those calls through PlayFab, and that comes into the C sharp or the C sharp package, and basically turns those functions and calls and blockchain data into in-game elements. And then all those in-game elements are dynamically updated considering what's going on the chain or the contracts. And that's basically what we've done. We've turned it instead of an interface that you click buttons with and that's it, like a switchboard, like most games are,
Hmm.
to something that has game objects and you can send them off and do things and they each have like an animation and an interaction between each other and again we're trying to make it as much of a game as possible even considering those constraints.
Yeah, fantastic. And I think this is something probably more up Maresh's alley in terms of back-end infrastructure and Web3 infrastructure. Is there anything you wanted to ask or add to that, Maresh, about how you're
No,
using Unity?
I think it's fantastic that you guys are already on Unity. We are right now simply using a more trimmed down version, which is something called Phaser, which is
Hmm.
also an engine, but it's primarily more geared towards 2D things. And that's really a function of the framework or the client which we are using, which is Mud. So right now we are also trying to, one of the key things which I always think about is how can we make this look like more like a game, and how can we make things interactive, more dynamic, rather than just more prettified DeFi app, if you know what I mean. Uh, and we are also trying to make sure that we don't have too many. We are also keeping variables as in contract storage values rather than tokenize them right now. Otherwise, things will go crazy.
Smart. Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely a lot less to worry about if you keep it all contract side. Nobody's actually holding these values of tokens or anything like that, swapping them around, and um, it turns into a simple read view function at that point, and then it updates.
I mean, at some point in the future, you can let them withdraw and like have tokenized versions, but you
Mhm.
don't want to sort of uh, create more like, because then it will have a life of its own. People will start uh, doing things in a manner which you completely didn't think through. So
Didn't design for it. Yeah.
didn't
People
design
break
for it.
things.
Yeah.
People break
Yeah.
things if you let them. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That just comes in with development of anything. Like you got a front end, back end guy. Everybody's going to have different problems because people are going to use it ways they didn't intend, and you're never going to escape that. And that's why you got to hope you
Yeah.
got a good
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
got a good
Yeah.
base of users testing, and get
Correct.
that good feedback. And
Are you guys already doing playtests, or are you planning playtests, etc.?
we have a very light demo that we've been playing around with that just goes through the first couple of tiers, and we're trying to get that locked in so that way it's a good first touch for most players that haven't maybe connected their wallet to anything yet, or they kind of want to get an idea how things work. But yeah, the devs are going heavy on that, and that's like our primary focus right now is just making sure we have a nice tutorial slash demo package for people to be able to get in there and start breaking stuff for us.
Awesome.
I'm super excited to give that a go. What's the ETA? Do you think that the public will be able to have a play with that?
We had it originally scheduled for the beginning of November. It did not look good enough to put into the public's eyes yet. So I was like, yeah, let's reel it back a little bit. And then whole team agreed, they wanted more time, hands on it, and it's given us the opportunity to polish more of the UI assets and game objects and things like that. So once we get the ARPs dropped and everything, I think we're looking at let's see, February, March-ish, beginning of March. And then once we get to the end of April, we should be going full game.
Oh, very cool.
It's a very agile, like hyper sped process, but we've done a lot of the work already up to this point, so we're just kind of releasing it to the hound, so to say.
Yeah, fantastic. And I think that leads in well to my last next question, which is, I guess, a hybrid of your go-to market and are you guys, self-funded? Did you guys raise a round? How's everything being paid for the time being? And does that kind of sort of come in contact with your go-to market? Did you do an NFT sale? Those kinds of things.
Yeah, our original program was our initial offering was the NFTs themselves. So those were the Gen Zero colonists. They sold for 0.08 a piece. It kind of turned into a right at peak market situation. So we were able to sell out, and everybody was having a great time. We got our first exploit because somebody came in and started minting pirates that they shouldn't have been minting, so we had to turn it into a commit reveal style situation.
Yeah.
And there was a little lag time in that actual being able to do that, which with immutable contracts, which you're aware of, you can't just redeploy after you fix it and it works the same. You got to migrate and it's a whole mess. And that's one of the main reasons we've transferred our development activities to the Diamond Standard contracts because they're upgradable. We can multi-sig it so that way nobody can just get in there and do anything with them. And it's a much better process. But yeah, we were able to mint out that handled most of our initial infrastructure costs. We were spending probably 20 to 30,000 a month just in like indexing tokens and alchemy nodes, and it was wild. So we did have a heavy burn up front, and then once things kind of cooled down, we were able to kind of say, hey, these are our normalized costs for the month. We're able to do this per month. Team doesn't take some crazy salary. We're kind of just very bootstrapped and trying to make our runway last as long as possible.
Mm.
And we all have our own income and stuff like that from other avenues as well. So it's not like if we ran out of our last dollar, it would go bye bye tomorrow. It's not a situation like that. But we have managed to stretch it out pretty good and provide a lot of stuff that I don't think most teams other than ours would be able to do.
Yeah, fantastic. And I think uh, yeah, building through the bear obviously has its challenges, but it also, makes teams have razor focus in terms of shipping and cutting burn. And, I think that ultimately makes for, let's say, a better product at the end of the day. So
It does. Back to that battle hardened thing, man. You take your hits, and if you keep on going, that says more about your character than anything else. But most people, once they have one bad situation, they just okay, let's launch something new. They want to start over from a fresh perspective, and that's where we get all the cash grabs and the rugs. And I think that's where people got confused too. They thought we were just like everybody else, which I understand, and I'm not mad about that or jaded about it or anything. It was par for the course for the season, but I think what most people are surprised about now is that we're back and we're doing well again. And they're like, "How the hell did this happen?"
absolutely. I think a lot of the people in the space, whether through experience or just having been burnt too many times, they have different expectations for when projects, hang around and keep delivering longer than they're expected to, I guess.
Mhm.
So that's always a good thing. And in terms of community, have you been able to keep them engaged through, such a long sort of build cycle? Because obviously games take time to be built. What do you guys do to sort of keep the community engaged? How do you sort of get them interested in the development process?
So initially, we had all of our rollout for the mint and all the game stuff, and that kind of died out. So what do they do next? You're right. Like, how do you keep them going through the lulls in development? So I personally oversee like all of the community engagement, management, marketing, also the team side stuff, and we do things like just keeping them very, very close to our development process, what was happening each day, you know, the ups and downs, what's good, what's bad, what's taking us time, what's not, and just always showing up. Like I showed up every day. If somebody tagged me for something or pinged me, like as soon as I was done doing my personal things for the day, it was back to them. And I really do take my community to heart. Like I love those guys. There's some people in there that I'll never forget, and we've had great times and stories to share. But it's just, you know, giving them something fun to do. Even if there's nothing fun to do, you can do like a giveaway challenge. Like one a couple of weeks ago, it was like, let's see who could, you know, send a picture of a snowman they made with two rocks for nipples or something, and you know they got 100,000 in Eon or something, and now that's worth like half an ETH. So back then it was only like 0.10, and it's, you know, it's just this fun little interactions you have with them and keeping them updated, keeping them close to the process so they understand the pain and maybe the joys you're going through as well.
That's fantastic. And
People
you
really do respect that stuff, man.
mm,
Most founders don't show up. They don't show up for their community. They never talk to them. They try to keep a veil of, you know, obfuscation through, you know, oh, we're gonna do a space in 2 weeks, and that's when you'll see me. It's just show up, man. Go talk to them. Get to know your market. It's a customer service business at the end of the day. These are your customers. They're your consumers. It doesn't matter how you slice it up. You have to engage them and keep them entertained and want what you're building.
that's a great philosophy, and especially if you have a community that's rooting for you and there for, you know, the thing that they're all excited to play. So I think that's it's a really good way to sort of approach things.
Yeah.
You mentioned Eon there for a bit. So there are you had the NFT PvP. Is Eon a separate thing to that? What is Eon exactly?
So, the initial staking mechanics where you stake your colonists, they mine an X amount of Reon per day, which is raw Eon, and that's the unrefined version of our base token or base utility token. And then they send it up to Pylon, which is like an orbital planet, like a man-made planet that has a light of a dying star going through the middle of it, and it turns this raw Eonite and Eonite, I'm saying that weird, raw Eonite into actual pure Eon. And that's what the premium currency is of the economy. It will be for all your speed ups, all the premium items, just better tier stuff altogether. If people want to sell, that's the easiest way to sell it, and you know, milk the protocol, so to say, from everybody's activity. Um, so yeah, just it's a dual token economy, and that's the shining star of everything. I want to make that like our main peg of value in the ecosystem through a bunch of complex economic tricks, and not tricks, but just ways of balancing everything out. I'm more so focused on stability, like we were saying earlier, than just like let's see how much we can make it go up. Because if it goes up too fast, like you know everybody references Axie, you seen they were $154 per token at peak, and that's when everything went bad. Is when it got too hyped out. And I don't like hype. I like stability. But yeah, Eon's great. It's how you're gonna be able to get all the good stuff and have a great time. And you don't need it, but you know you'll want it.
Right. So you can play the game. You can have a PFP Gen Zero colonist. You can have your
Hmm.
ARPs, and you can play the game without Eon, and you'll sort of slowly earn Eon as you play. Is that right?
Yep, yep, and it's no big P2E emissions. Like I've plotted it out and with upgrades and the way it actually gets mined every day by all the initial ARPs. We should have about 3.5 to 4 years of emissions, and that's if everybody started at max level. If they were all tier 14 from the start, it would take about 3.5 years. So I wanna stretch it out, make it a great game. Everybody can always come back, and even if they're bored of it, they can come back and claim their stuff and see what's going on, what's new. And maybe we did some updates to the content and they can do something new. You know, it's I want it to be a longevity play as opposed to a quick, you know, burnout and you know, you start something new phase.
Yeah, fantastic. Um, we talked about how assets and asset ownership is a big part of why you think Web3 games should exist. What other sort of things are you excited about in terms of fully on-chain games, aside from assets, that you think you're going to really want to try and explore as part of Shattered Eon?
I think it's cool because of what we're building. and a lot of other people are building this as long as it's, primarily on chain, is you could technically play the game if the servers went down. As long as Ethereum's still up, you can still play it. It's going to be super boring, but you can definitely still play it. And I think people, I'm excited to see the emergent gameplay, what comes out of the different mechanics that are made available through the blockchain technologies, and how people will add to it, the cool little like uh, optimize your troop calculators and stuff like. I just want to see people getting involved in doing things that we weren't able to do, or maybe would have done if we had the extra time, or they see it from a different perspective. And just in general, through like the whole like industry, though, I just think it gives access to a bunch of people to get involved in a way that they normally wouldn't in a game. It's like the dream of every gamer to make a little bit of money while you're playing a game, right? Like, maybe if not, you still at least very, very much at the end of the day own your items, and you can do whatever you want with them.
Absolutely. And have you looked into what the let's say the treasure DAO or the magic ecosystem have been doing? What are your thoughts on those kinds of ecosystems?
Yeah, that's like beacon.gg and all that stuff, right? That just launched not
Yeah,
too long
yeah,
ago. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're doing pretty well. So initially, the way I understood it when I was kind of looking at it was they do like their games are like cartridges, right? And there's a certain amount of the magic that's staked in those games that kind of work as a cross network token for their in-game items and anything else they do mechanically. And I think it's really cool. Engine tried doing that way back, ENJ. Um, a lot of old games that people totally forgot about, that kind of just flopped because they didn't have the funding to keep it going, and people have
Mm,
real lives and stuff. And it's nice to see something working better like that, that is actually gaining steam. And it's going to have the same problem that every other network has, because it's new and shiny. Everybody's going to be hyped out about the most minimum viable product out there. And maybe that puts a bad taste in some people's mouths eventually. But if people keep at it and that's their preferred development chain of choice, then somebody will eventually build something that puts that chain on the map. So that's another cool thing too, is just seeing how people are pushing the envelope across the ecosystem to make this possible and make it make sense, and not just do it because it has the words Web3 or blockchain attached to it.
absolutely. And I think Beacon's probably the good example where, they just kind of nailed that fun game loop, and everyone was just sort of playing it for the fun aspect of it. And then that's what drove a lot of the activity on Arbitrum and Treasure DAO. But that kind of leads me into what sort of what else are you seeing out there in terms of other Web3 game builders? What else is sort of interesting looking to you that you think yeah, you sort of see excited about sort of seeing them develop?
Um, I'm curious about Citadel, which is kind of, they launched around when we did, but they're more of like an Eve DeFi protocol, and I'm interested to see how that plays out. I would like Wolfgame for, to eventually become something better. Um, I don't really, I'm not trying to bag on anybody. They did a great job. They do things the way they did, but I would like to see it be something different. And I think it will eventually if the community, starts an uprise and like, hey, what's going on over here? But um, I'm gonna be honest, like I'm so entranced in my own stuff, man, that like I have very little time to actually go out there and seek out other things. But I did play the Illuvium um, beta when they
Oh yeah.
did the Cosmo Medici thing, and that was really fun, because it was very passive. I could keep it open in my browser. I could go catch some monsters, throw out some baits, and like I like little casual stuff like that nowadays because I don't really game anymore as much as I would like to. I just downloaded Dwarf Fortress the other day, and I haven't even got a chance to go through the tutorial yet. I tried, and I was like,
That
damn,
that
I
is
do not have time.
that's like saying I haven't read for years and I'm going to go straight into like some kind of
War and Peace.
encyclopedia. Exactly. Yeah, yeah. The Art of War
Yeah,
or something. That you've
yeah,
got a big chunk to bite off there.
yeah,
Did you get
but
the Steam version or the original?
the Steam
Yeah,
one,
yeah.
because it's just easier. It keeps it all in my library. And we just announced a partnership with something similar today, like Steam Into the Vortex. I don't know if you've heard of those guys.
I
Um,
actually just saw from your Twitter this morning, and I had a look at them. So what are they trying to do?
so I'm gonna butcher this, and Zam, the guy that is basically my concierge of the whole protocol. He explains it as like a game launcher for Web3. So if it's not a browser-based game, they're allowed to post their games and partner with them and stuff like that. And it's going to turn into like a Steam for Web3, to where you can go in, find the type of game you like, chat with your friends. Um, if you're familiar with the Blizzard BattleNet type
Hmm.
interface as well, it's kind of like that. It's a mix
Right.
of a couple cool, really cool components that I think will be good to keep all the Web3 gamers connected and create that kind of like familiarity in the space. So I'm just really excited about it. He's explained it to me a couple times, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. Again, it takes me a few times to actually put all my attention towards it, but I usually am very picky with collaborations and things like that. So if I see something special, of course I'm gonna dig into it, and they definitely caught my interest, so I'm excited for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that that sounds interesting. If it's kind of like a launcher to sort of um, corral the sort of Web3 gaming community together, that could be quite interesting. Speaking of collaborations, do you think being a Web3 game, Web3 protocol makes it easier or harder to collaborate with people? Like, I guess at the end of the day, people don't need permission to do things with your code and sort of extend it and do those kinds of things. Like, what's your sort of take on all of that?
I mean, yeah, that's kind of what we all signed up for when we started doing this, is like anybody's able to do whatever they want. If the code's online, it's open source at that point, it's on the blockchain, anybody can read it. Um, I, as far as collaborations go, I mean, everybody wants to collab with everybody. If you're even slightly, getting attention, everybody wants to extract value from your community. And I think that's the bad part of it, where just because you exist, collab with us, so that way we can also benefit from your user base that you've manufactured over the course of X amount of years or months or whatever. And I would like to see more meaningful partnerships where it grows both protocols at the same time in a way that doesn't take away from the users. Because you can grow without, putting your finger in everybody's pocket and taking a dollar bill out every time you do a tweet or something like that. Most of it is just like, hey, promote our whitelists and our mints and our blah 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 blah. I'm like, dudes, like, come on, man. Like, you can't just expect that I want to do this. And then they get mad when I say no, and I'm like, you can't do that. Like, I totally would, in a totally different world where I didn't care and I wasn't who I am, I would collab with you, sure. I would go and help you mint out. Like, but that's not my focus. But I think it's hard as a Web3 thing though to do more than just what, stay in your network or the industry, so to say. You can't really branch out and go, hey, freaking, Toyota Corporation, I want to put my skin on one of your cars and promote my product. Like, they're going to be like, what the hell is this? It's you got to get really creative with that stuff for it to mean anything. And I think a few are, you got BAYC and OK Bears and things like that have done a couple cool, like, real world type Web2 brick and mortar business collaborations and real life merch. And I think that's cool and it's expected, and it's the eventuality of being popular in a trade, or just when money's moving through your market. But I would like to see more meaningful collaborations.
Yeah, absolutely. It's got to be like when you ask someone to do something for them, it's like, what are they sort of, what kind of value are they providing for your community as well, right? And I think that's something that a lot of people forget when they sort of reach out for these kinds of so-called collaborations. Most of them are just kind of requests to be put in front of your community.
Help us, shill us, please.
Yeah, exactly. It'll be worth it.
Yeah.
No, but speaking of which, one of our strategies and something I'd love to do with you guys as well, if possible, is to play test each other's games. I think because we're still so early in the space and there's not that many people building in Web3, it's sort of good to sort of get as much feedback as possible early on. And one of the things that we really think would be interesting is that we're going to have factions in our game, and
Hmm.
you can join as any one of these factions, and whenever you whatever the win state is, because we're going to have different win states, but let's say whatever win state you achieve in the game, some of your winnings will go towards a faction as a type of, let's say, fealty tax, for example. So that
That's
that
cool.
faction can sort of become, you know, a DAO and have a life of its own, and then decide, you know, for all of our sort of the captains in our faction, you know, we could maybe run prizes or tournaments, or even sort of we might put up these global goals for them to sort of achieve together. And I think that would be a really kind of fun competitive edge that let's say, you know, let's say Shattered Eon is a faction in our game versus the Ready Player DAO guys, for example. And you know, it sort of gives you another incentive to play, not just for yourself, but also for this kind of group that you want to be a part of. So I'd love to do something with you guys when we sort of make more progress in that area.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we're evolving our processes all the time. So like depending on what you guys have built and where we're at and stuff like that, we can I think I don't think I was talking about this with you. No, it was somebody earlier today where once all of our systems exist, we can piece them out to keep them a self-contained like tournament arena of like say a X amount of map tiles and you start at level 5 and your goal is in 1 day cycle to see how many people can do the most PvP attacks or anything like that. So like it's cool that you're thinking of it in a similar way. And of course, man, like we're over here doing what we're doing, but that doesn't mean that we are going to completely shrug off people that are building stuff as well. Like we want to see what you're doing, and we want to show off what we're doing at the same time. We're not going to give you our source code, but we're going to show you what we're doing. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And yeah, I'm super down for that. Like I never oppose those things. Again, when it's done in a meaningful way and there's actually good intentions behind it, and I like to think that I can filter those out pretty good. So I would definitely like to talk about it more. And but yeah, I'm never opposed to something cool like that.
Awesome. And Maresh, I just had an idea. Maybe like Eon could be one of the things that people smuggle across our map.
Ooh,
Which,
contraband.
yeah, because it's all about smuggling. Well, we call it spice. It's actually space cocaine.
Hey, just say it was inspired by Dune. You can call it Spice or whatever you want, man. That's fun. No, that's
By the way,
fantastic.
which chain are you on? Which chain are you guys on building on?
We're currently yeah on ETH L1, Ethereum L1, and then we're
Oh
gonna put
wow.
the logic layer on Polygon to
Okay, cool.
handle all
Yeah.
of those interactions and stuff. Because there's no
Uh,
way possible that people would be okay with spending the gas this thing's gonna take.
oh no, absolutely not. No,
Just
no.
our guild missions alone for our pirate factions
Yeah.
or our pirate like team missions, it almost maxes out a block. So it's been optimized since then, but it was just funny in testing. We're like, man, we're gonna take a whole like we got 50 people in one contract trying to all start an instance together at the same time, and it just jacked the gas crazy high.
Oh, no, no.
It
I
was
mean,
fun to watch.
Ethereum can only be realistically be used as a settlement layer, and then other things like rollups, etc., can be where you can build actual like games, etc.
Mhm.
So right now we are play testing. I mean, for the testing purposes, we are building on XTI, but we are definitely going to move towards a rollup at some stage.
Yeah, it's definitely smart. Like we would probably be going the ZK rollup route if
Mm.
one, it was easier to integrate, and two, if it was more widely used between people. Still, there's still a lot of people that are even crypto natives that don't have any idea, how it works, how you connect to it, how you run a node on your own end. Like it takes a lot currently the way it's packaged for most consumers. So I'm excited to see what Polygon is actually going to do in that aspect because they have something coming out. I know they try to say they're the first ones to do it, stuff
There
like
are
that.
there are
But
a few other ZK. I mean, like there are a few other people trying to do EVMs with ZK.
mhm.
There is a group called Scroll, which is trying to do something like a full ZK EVM. Polygon is trying to do something.
Is
Then there are a couple more
Starknet
as well.
ZK or is that not?
Starknet, yeah.
Starknet is ZK. I don't know whether they are full. I think they are also attempting a full EVM.
Yeah, they do. They have like three different types of ZK rollup protocols. Like you can do it. I forget what they're all defined as, but there's three different ways to go about it, and each one has a different throughput and bandwidth
Yeah,
and stuff like that. So Starknet's one of them. They're pretty
Mm.
cool.
yeah,
I
yeah,
definitely want to dig into that more when we can.
yeah. I think
Maresh,
they
what's
have their own.
your
Yep.
sorry, sorry.
No, no, go ahead. Yeah.
What's your background? I'm assuming like you're in the engineering side and stuff.
Yeah, yeah. So
Okay.
I'm an engineer, of course, but I've been in technology and finance for a while. Did TradFi for a while. Ran my own crowdfunding real estate startup for a
Nice.
while. Yeah, yeah. And the reason we the journey which I had was I wanted to see if we can tokenize real estate, okay, and like connect real world assets to DeFi, because I had this whole thing that crypto needs to solve real world problems, or actually solve some problems, create some value uh, beyond just being a set of tools in which value can be exchanged. I mean, value has to be created before it can be exchanged or optimized. Then we did that. We did that for a while, but eventually we came to the conclusion that there are several reasons why it doesn't work. And then I've been working with Sean for almost like 4 or 5 years now. And we went through a series of DeFi protocols across various EVM chains. About a year back, I would say that we came to the conclusion that, okay, the state of the technology and the state of the economics in this technology space is not what we think it should be. And we have, like we mentioned earlier, we put in a significant amount of thought into what we should be doing, how it should work, and generally came to the conclusion that games are it. So we have been approaching it from an outside in approach, where, okay, where do we want to go, and what the current state of technology allows us. Like Sean mentioned earlier on, we try to figure out if we can actually just extend dark forest, reskin it, and like add some more features, etc. But their technology architecture is not really suited towards doing that. And then we came across mud, and then we explored it. It has this ECS framework which makes it more suitable for it. And since then we have been trying to sort of wrap our head around it, and like every day is a new technical challenge which we try to solve, while also making sure that we keep the game loop fun. So that's a very, very important consideration for us, that everything what we do is actually a game and people actually enjoy playing it. So I think it's a very enjoyable challenge. It's a fun challenge.
I wake up every day and I can't wait to get back at it. Like,
yeah.
The whole game loop aspects and stuff like that. That's like my bread and butter. That's what I love doing the most.
Yeah.
Is it just you two right now, or do you have some other people that are working on it
No,
with
no.
you?
So we have so my role is really the technology lead. I don't actually code, but we have 4 devs and 1 tester separate to us. Yeah. So they actually manage the actual coding side of things.
Yeah. I'm smelling a little competition here, boys. You got a similar team size. What's going on? You coming for my spot? What's happening?
Not really.
The pie will grow. We're not
They're
taking
like,
this.
yes, but not really. I love it. That's cool, dude.
So the thing is, this is so early. I mean, like, I think we look at things as like co-conspirators. In fact, we only a couple of days back we spoke with Mithrayam from Bodan, and that guy has been at it for a while now, and he was actually quite keen on sort of sharing his experiences, whatever he has learned, even without us asking. And we kind of share that thing because we have this inkling that, okay, I think this is where crypto will gain mass adoption by actually, we want to abstract away the entire crypto thing. People should not know that, okay, this is crypto. It should be fun first. It should be enjoyable first, and people should just play it because it is fun. And
exactly.
So obviously and you know this as well as anybody else, there are significant limitations in the technology right now, and there is an interesting technical engineering challenge where we try to work within those constraints to build something interesting. So from that perspective, we look at the reason why we are actually talking to you, because we are quite keen on learning more about people who are on a similar journey as us, and eventually, and we have a long thesis about it, eventually this will occupy a significant position in the whole gaming space, and it will be the bedrock of decentralized metaverses. That's where we see it going. So from that perspective, we look at anybody who is legitimately doing something, and it's not just a cash grab, as co-conspirators more than anything.
Yeah, I totally understand that. And then like you're saying, the difficulties of making because with Solidity and everything, yeah, you have these constraints where you can't
Yeah.
it separates that like live server aspect and makes it
Yeah.
very determinate and hard, like it's hard rules, you can't get past them, and then you got to try to dangle a way to make that work
It's
in a
almost
live
like
environment.
yeah. It's almost like, I mean, I was thinking the other day. I mean, our challenges are similar to maybe like the 1960s Apollo moon missions. I mean, like they had very, very limited resources in terms of computing power, but they made things work within those constraints. And they built something very, very interesting. And sometimes even the other example which I think of is uh, when you are, for example, communicating with the Mars rover, for example, from Earth, there's a time delay of like 8 minutes between, I don't know whether it's 8 minutes or I think it's more than 30 minutes, I think. So you send an instruction, you have to make sure that it carries enough information so that it can then do its own thing. So there is a little bit of a different cycle throughput between what happens on the back end and what happens in the front end, and you have to make sure that both of these two things sort of stay in sync, as well as give enough real-time feedback to users, which will mean that it's not really looking more like a software of menus, full of menus, and like a real game. But it's a
Yeah,
pretty interesting challenge. Yeah.
you have to send your information with purpose. Like it has to have purpose, as like you said, enough instructions. It needs to have all that data it needs, and you need to make damn sure it's accurate, or
Yeah.
you screw up the whole thing. It's a crazy engineering process, because you have to do a lot of thinking before you make these things. Like there's no way about it. You have to sit there and just stare at your screen and like, how the heck am I going to do this?
And we don't really have the same flexibility as somebody who is doing like an AAA Web 2 game, because they have all the engines and all the infrastructure ready to go, whereas we often have to build the basics.
Build the engine first, yeah.
Custom tooling, custom
Yeah,
everything. You have to homebrew your own processes. Like you got to
yeah,
make it work for your systems. It's nuts.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's an interesting challenge. So we have to make sure that while we do that, we keep the game loop fun, and B, don't run out of money while doing that. So so it's an interesting challenge we have set ourselves. Yeah, get enough people. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely finding the players is I think the thing people try to do first. It's
Yeah.
let's find all of our players first and hope they stay, and then they build the thing. So it's kind of a hard balance. I don't oppose that idea, but you just got to make sure that you're giving them the proper expectations and everything. And that goes back to how do you communicate with your community, and it's the whole process, man. We're all figuring it out. There's nobody has actually had the winning recipe yet. And I think that's what is cool about it.
There are hardly any on-chain games which are live. I think apart from Dark Forest, is there any other one, Sean, which is actually in production and is live in a big way? Like a true on-chain game.
Fully on chain?
That's the
full game loop? Yeah, no, probably not yet.
Even Bodan is not. I mean, he's been at it for a few years, but
I mean, what he's got looks pretty polished, but I don't think he's released it to the public yet. Skystrife is the only thing that
Skystrife is not.
It's not released to public.
Yeah,
they're still at the play testing stage. So yeah, I mean, this is just to show how early we are in all of this, right? But time has flown, and we're an hour in, and I think that's a good sort of place to wrap up this conversation. Blackout, really, really great to have you on the show. Well, it's not a show, it's a podcast, but maybe it'll be a show.
Hey, we can make it a show. You
want to make it a show?
We'll get some people to dance and do
put a bit of
an
outro onto it. Yeah,
we'll get the fireworks going every time somebody freaking mints something, or I don't know.
It was really good to have a chat. Always great to meet some genuine builders in the space, and you guys are obviously working on something with a lot of passion and a lot of technical nous behind it. So we're super excited to actually have a Shattered Eon NFT. So I'm going to use that to play the game when you guys have the play test ready. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, send me both your wallets, and I'll hook you up with a little extra something. I get a bunch of assets, man. We sweep the floors like when everything was super bad, like I was saying, and tried to help pad the blow a bit. So I want more players than I want more colonists. So please give me your addresses, and I'll send you guys some.
Absolutely. And I'm sure we'll be in touch soon with other things that we can do together.
For sure, man. And right off the cuff, you have a very unassuming presence so far. Like I was like, man, these guys got like 5 followers, whatever, you know, and I'm like, what's going on here? Like it seems weird, but I'm like, they also seem super genuine, so I'm confused. And then kind of talking a little bit more, now talking with you guys online, it's like totally different experience. So I'm glad you reached out, man. This was definitely super fun.
Awesome. Likewise, it's been great to chat. And yeah,
Yeah.
we'll save this and then we'll publish it out and then we can put it in front of our communities. I think this is
Cool.
great content.
And I'm sure our people will love to see it. So they like hearing me talk about alpha and how the process goes. Super interesting what you got going on. So maybe they'll like all that too. So
Fantastic.
yeah, again, thank you. Thank you. Anytime, man.
All right. Cheers, mate. Talk
Cheers.
soon.
Later.